So guys, let me know if you can hear me okay with these headphones in. But yeah, I have so much to say about the Shaquella situation because I see it from a different, bigger perspective than what's on the ground. And both things I've been speaking about, but it's getting more serious. And I'm seeing it not only with the Shaquella incident, but I'm seeing it within my friends' lives too. And it's just so important because it's getting more and more tragic every single day. And oh, good. Thank you so much. All right, I appreciate that. It's getting more and more important every single day that, like, if you don't listen to your discernment on this, it's getting more serious. And I'm seeing it. So Shaquella was just like another incident. She will definitely get justice. I know spiritually I did what I do for people to get their consequences. So we just need to sit back and watch the universe handle it the way the universe will handle it. I've seen it handle it, so they will get theirs. And I know other people are relating their prayers that the consequences of their actions are seen for them. 100% bet on it. Bet on it, okay? The universe always delivers, and not I'm not saying this wispy way. I'm just saying there's ways that you can tap into it. So let's just sit and watch. But very heartbreaking situation. And it ties into two different things I've been talking about, especially in the Black women's space, that's important to talk about, and we don't. And this is sparking it. One is for the last couple of years, I've been telling you there's definitely a separation and split occurring, and we're on the same earth, but definitely there's a separation between 3D and 5D. Either you're extending or you're not. And if you remember in the last 2 years, I'll have periodic videos going, hey, there's separation, there's separation, there's separation. Let it happen. Let things and people fall away. Let jobs fall away that aren't in your best good. Because if because of your fear, you're holding on to them, you're going to suffer the results. And the 3D is getting increasingly more violent and more dangerous, more so than you've ever seen before. And so right now we've been sharing the space, but the separation I think is becoming very obvious. And I want to talk about Shaquella, but also another incident someone I'm friends with was going through, and it's literally the same thing. So just to reiterate, there's a couple things. I was just about 2 weeks ago, I was talking about how I was talking to my spirit guides about getting more friends because I moved to a new area about 3 years ago, and I have people, but they're not as close as I'd like. And we were talking about and so like if you look to, and I was talking about like I had to look into the karmic effects. Don't you guys have soul contracts for friends in past life that you'd never have another friend outside of them, so make sure you don't say those casual things because it is a contract with the universe that one day in another life you'll have to remove because you're like, well, what's going on? And that video, and this ties into this, one of the things that my guide said to me was like, oh, we have someone in the area that would be really good for you, but um, they're not as healed as you, so they're going to need a lot of work. And you recall in the video I said, you know what, no thank you for now. I actually really enjoy the time to myself, and I personally just can't take on friends that need work. I just don't want to, because that's a lot of energy expended, and I just don't have the extra energy right now for a friend that needs work for me to be their friends. I'd prefer to just wait for someone who has done the work and is like-minded and on the same page. And that's pretty much who I hang out with now. And I was okay with that. But it's an important story because with the Shaquella issue, um, I look at what she's doing and I look at how I avoided that because um, the people she was around, I mean, it's very clear and obvious. She was ahead of them in ambition, ahead of them in looks, ahead of them in life, ahead of them in hustle, ahead of them in ambition, ahead of them in class. It was just obvious. And, what I was talking about friends in my last video, where I grew up when I was a kid and in high school, I had a certain group of friends that now I'm still friendly with them, but we don't hang out because we're not on the same page, right? We're not in the same world. We're not in the same socioeconomic class. And whenever I tried to mix different classes of people and different things like that, it didn't turn out right. You can't be mixing people like that. And I can be friendly and cordial to everyone, but at some point you got to realize I talk about money differently than my friends from high school who stayed home and didn't necessarily go on to make more than, minimum wage or whatnot and still do, right, as adults. I talk about money different. I talk about access to trips and buying clothes as someone who's different. And so, the way I talk about money and trips and access and travel is something that when I'm around my college friends, that's a pretty okay conversation to have because they're doing the same thing because we're in that same socioeconomic platform, right? Or that class or whatnot. So even if we're not making the same amount, we are sharing the same experiences that we have accessible to us, right? Um, right? Versus if I talk to my sister has only traveled to like one or two, three states, and that's driving. Can you know what I mean? Like when I talk about all the things I do, if it, if my friend, she's my sister, so she's not going to hate, although that could happen. Mine doesn't, she lives in her own world. But I know when I get around other people that I have before, and I'm talking about the things that I do that are very normal for the people in my socioeconomic bracket around them, I've seen the face and the hate. I've seen it. And I just realized, okay, we can't roll together too heavy. We can roll lightly, but not heavy. Okay. So heavy versus lightly is because the way that I roll, what I think is normal, what I think you're supposed to do in life, the class I'm in, and this is a problem. Black people and Black women don't want to talk about it, but it'll get you in trouble because you need to be able to recognize that some people sort of know this and that's their lifestyle, not just it's their life. And you're here in this lifestyle. One looks so envious, whereas in my lifestyle, I was like, I don't have enough money. I know people who are doing this and in Croatia right now, and they're traveling to Dubai. And like, you know what I mean? Like, even for me, I'm like, I'm not even that big a deal, but for someone else, you are. And it was just so obvious to everyone outside looking in that she was trying to hang on to that, which I get, but you're going to have to make an executive decision. And I want to talk about that because right now at this 3D, 5D split, when what I'm seeing occurring amongst her and my friends, and I'm going to give you an example of what he's going through, it's getting more damaging. It's getting more violent. You shine too bright for these people. And that in them goes, well, why do you have this? Why do you have that? Why are you? I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. Why do you have that? And it's something that I had to class navigate, especially being in the Black community. The first thing when I was 5, I wasn't accepted immediately, although I'm cool with it. And I've learned to just be me and embrace that. But because I spoke proper English, right? The positive thing about that it happened was so young that I learned some people are just going to like me and some people aren't. And I have a choice. I can start talking ghetto to make them like me, or I can be like, nah, I'm going to be me and find people who appreciate it. So at a very young age, I said, no, I'm going to be me and find people who appreciate it. And that's good that I learned that so young because ever since that day, I sort of looked at people through the lens of like, are they able to, do they have the capacity to accept me as this as normal? Or are they like in a place where me talking like that is so crazy and they can't handle it? And I am so out of place for them. It makes it awkward for them. I shouldn't be messing with people like that. And so that was good that I made that choice early. But when I look at the Shaquella situation, you look at a woman that didn't make that decision, although it might have had a lot of different signs. And it just reminds me of a current friend that I have. And he is somebody, so he's a contractor. And all the women he dates are Black women, but from the lower classes, which is fine. But there's certain issues he comes up with them that maybe I'm not necessarily seeing amongst my friend group, right? Generally working, making minimum wage, which is fine. But the kind of people they're around and the kind of issues he gets involved with, I'm just like, these are the women that you like, but why are you getting mad when they do these things? Because it's like, there's a reason. I don't say this, gosh, this is going to sound really bad. I don't say this in a mean way. And it's not bad because what I'm saying isn't true. It's just because you guys don't want to hear the truth because you're going to feel some sort of way. But I think that has been hurting us. So you're about to hear the truth today. But, if the kind of mindset you have to be an adult who works at like Burger King, there's just a difference in how you see the world, how you see your own intelligence and what you're incapable of doing, how you even know how to do things to earn more. There's just a big grift. And that's who he chooses to hang out with. But then I'm looking at him when he says like the different issues that come up around this. And I'm just like, well, you got with someone who, isn't highly educated, has like the minimum education, which is high school, which is fine. But like, it's okay if you're like, okay, I have a minimum high school education, but I went to get an advanced degree and now I make this money. And so I have access to this type of people and these type of opportunities. But it's not if you've never left high school and you're still around high school people and you have a high school mindset mentality and you never opened your life to anything else. Like you roll different. Like I was telling you, the things that I think are normal, they are like, whoa, you got to be rich. I'm like, nah, you just have a credit card. You pay it off over 3 days right? But to them, it's like this big thing. And it's such a huge gap. And it's okay that that gap exists, but you need to be aware of it. And he was just telling me that, like, being around these women and their men, he would constantly be like almost threatened with violence and da 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 da. But I'm just like, you're around people that do that though. Like, why? And it was very interesting because he's like, I taught myself. He was like, my parents were racist. And so because they were racist, I taught myself to see people as equals. And I'm like, okay, I can see that. So you're looking at everyone as equals, but like we're not all equal in where we're at, right? Um, Someone who is a CEO of a successful company is a different position than someone who's a CEO of an unsuccessful company. Yeah, we're all equals, but you need to have to start recognizing some people, like, you have to be able to scale up and down and use discernment. We're not all the same. That word discernment comes because how do you discern one from the other, right? So yeah, we're all human beings and we're all equal. And I personally treat everyone with respect. If you see me out in public, you're not going to see me acting crazy with anyone. Actually, to be quite honest, because I outsource everything and I outsource everything. Like I pay people for their service, right? I pay someone to mow my lawn. I pay people to do my laundry. I pay people to clean my house. I'm actually extra accommodating to people in the service industry because I realize, shoot, if you don't do it, I got to do it. So I want you to be happy at your job. So here you go, plus a tip. Keep doing this. So when I go to my favorite restaurant, we have workers and I'm not waiting there for 50 minutes. It's self-serving. Okay. It's very self-serving, but it works. So I actually highly respect all services, trades, and industry because I don't want to do it. And someone has to do it. You want someone to do that and be happy to do it. Right. So don't get, and I go to Burger King. I love the people at Burger King, especially when they get my order right. Okay. So like, understand that you can understand that like maybe we roll different and we're going to have a different view of money and access and what we can do and what we're capable of in our mindset. But that doesn't mean that you have less respect for them. I have utmost respect because like either you do it or I do it and I don't want to. So I want you to do it and be happy. I'm going to pay you extra for it. Like I'm going to be glad that they're like someone's there and they're happy to do it and whatnot. So like it doesn't even have to be a bad thing. And it reminds me of I went to this party. It was a fundraiser. And there was this guy, he was a previous CEO of Cap Gemini, so just a millionaire. And I remember like he was the guy that after the party, he went around to every single server. It wasn't even his party. Shook their hand, let them know how much he appreciated it, right? That was, and I think he even tipped him. Not even his party, right? But he's a successful CEO that has learned like everyone is important on the ship, right? Like if you have a ship, it's not just the captain, it's the deckhands, it's the cooks, it's the clean. Otherwise, it all falls apart, right? So just because there's differences in our roles does not mean there's less respect. You just need to understand what goes with one role versus the other, right? The captain has to present himself a certain way than the cook who's in the galley and doesn't meet the guest, right? It's a different. You just got to understand for our roles, we roll differently because we are forced to roll differently because of who we have access to and who we're entertaining. And so I remember I was looking at him. I was just like, why do you hang out with these low vibrational characters, right? Because, I mean, like all the women I know, like none of us do this shit, right? Like we got jobs, we take care of ourselves, like all of it. So we wouldn't do this to you because we wouldn't do it at work. So we have a level of professionalism at the workplace that sort of leads into our personal life. So it's like, yeah, we just wouldn't do that because you just don't do that in a corporate environment and you learn that class. You learn to take that on. And he's just like, yeah, we were all equals. And I was like, look, your mom not right for being racist, but like you do have to look at people differently. Like it's not the same. Like you hang out with some of the stories you told me, like you hang out with some scuzz buckets. Like I would never hang out with, like you can't tell that was a scuzz bucket or like a criminal. You can't tell. You treating everybody the same. Well, I can treat you the same, but like I also know you're a criminal, and like that's okay. I mean, I'm not judging you for your criminal activity, but like I'm not letting you in my house, right? Like you can still use discernment. You can still be courteous to people. But it was just very interesting but you really have to understand who can roll with you with your sense of values, sense of integrity, as well as just your sense of what's, normal in your lifestyle and who can't. And if they can't, you can't force them because they get resentful. I've been seeing this my whole life. So I see her hanging out with these people and I'm like, oh my God, I wouldn't have hung out with any of them. It would have been clear that we're not on the same page long ago. Doesn't mean we couldn't be in the same room. Doesn't mean I'm not polite, but close friends? No. And then my friend, same thing. I'm like, wow, nice man, but like you can't tell that the women that you're choosing Like, because, and he has this really, it's a friend, he just has this really big need to help people. So, like, even though he sees you're clearly emotionally damaged, he has the kind of provider masculine heart where, like, he'll work with you. And so he's trying to fix people, but you can't fix people. I mean, they can only break you too, which he almost been. So he has like this horrible stories about all the people he allowed in his life because he's trying to help. And he's like, you just became as broken as they are. And I'm looking back and he's like, well, I'm still steady. But I was just like, you need discernment though. You can help, but you have to have a boundary at which one place in which you won't overextend. You're telling me about all these people who almost robbed you because you went to go help this girl or that girl. And it's just on and on and on. It's just like you would think they learned discernment until they met me. And I told them, like, what are you hanging out with all these, dust rags for? But no, and it's just so interesting. So yes, we can treat everybody with human respect and dignity, but that doesn't mean that you need to allow them in your circle because they need to prove to you they have the capacity to reflect back and give what you give to them. Y'all crazy. I've always kept score. So there's people I was giving to and I was like, hey, you never invite me anywhere. And I cut it off and nothing happened. I was like, hey, it takes two, right? And that sort of piggybacks on that. So there's a separation occurring. It's getting darker. So if you choose to hang out with low vibrational people or a low vibrational job that was clear you should have left, but you kept on it because you were scared you couldn't find something else, you're scared you couldn't do better, your fear held you in place. Well, your fear is about to get you in a lot of trouble. And it's just going to get worse and it's going to get worse and it's going to get worse. Okay. So you have to start making these decisions because I'm starting to see the outcomes, and the outcomes, they're not just deadly, they're horrendous, they're heartbreaking. But you're choosing to be around these low vibrational people because you're not choosing discernment. You're choosing, well, everyone's equal. No, we're not. Another woman has a different level of damage I do. Depending on the amount of damage within her that she hasn't healed is damage that she will reflect back on you. So no, your experience with me is not going to be the same with this chick who's never been to therapy, who's never gotten a healer, who doesn't even look at her healing, doesn't take the time to heal. You're going to have a completely different experience, hun, because I don't have that inside me. I'm releasing, I'm removing. I got to go back to second grade for some of my trauma. With the acceptance thing, which I was talking about, that's like kindergarten. Like, so I've been working all this stuff going back to kindergarten. You're going to get a different perspective. I'm not triggered by things. Yeah, you can say something rude to me and I'll just look at you. You're not going to get a reaction. You can't trigger this. It's already been triggered. You're not the first. You're not the last. We've worked through this. Versus someone with it right on the surface, you trigger them, they might throw a brick at you. Okay? Because you're touching on some stuff that still hurts them deeply. So yes, who you're choosing to be around, if they are low vibrational, and low vibrational is trauma too, because there's people who've been seriously injured and one becomes depressed and one becomes an inspirational speaker. So bad things happening does not indicate who you are. It's how you respond to them and heal to them that do. So you need to see the people who are healing and responding to that. And it's funny with this friend because I was telling him, hey, you telling me about all this sad stuff in your life. I told him, get a therapist. I don't want to take it all because FYI, when people come to you and emotionally dump all that horrible stuff on you, they just transfer that energy to you. I'm so open to receive because I'm in my feminine energy so much. I'm a pretty open receptacle. I have to be extra diligent to cut it off and be like, no, 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 I am not receiving this. You go to a therapist who can stay detached, who knows how to handle this. I'm not dealing with it. I'm probably just going to look at you and be like, why are you hanging out with scuzz buckets? And sorry, I'm getting over. Why are you hanging out with scuzz buckets? Because scuzz buckets do scuzz bucket things. Criminals do criminal things, right? You know what I mean? Like, poor people do poor things. Rich people do like, listen, learn who people are and what they are about. And then don't be surprised when they do those things. You know what I mean? So it's just such a big story on that. So I'm just going to conclude because I'm almost at my destination, but it's just really important right now to cut people out of your life. And that last video I did on, friendships and the karmic aspect and, taking on new friends versus not, and just being discerning about that. We're coming to a time and, the role of a leader is to be alone. Sometimes the role of a renegade or a revolutionary is to be alone. The role of a CEO is to be alone, except you hang out with other CEOs, right? But it's never going to be a big circle. And from what I'm seeing and all the signs that I'm getting is as you make these decisions, you're going to roll solo. So I have another friend over the last 3 years. he's really cool because he's been like me. And he went from always providing from everyone in his family, drama ensuing, hanging out with his friends to like now he's like, listen, I do this, do my model kits, I work out, I go home. I don't party the way I used to, you know? So he's a Scorpio, so he's very intuitive. So like if his higher self is telling him this is time, even though he doesn't have the words I do because I can channel directly as a medium, he still gets it because Scorpios can be like that. You know, depending on their maturity level. And and it's funny, so I'm looking at me and I'm having this conversation, but like I look at that and I'm like, yeah, I mean, if you're following guidance, like that's what's gonna happen. Like you're not gonna have a big circle. Doesn't mean you don't have anyone. It's just that you're more discerning about who is and who gets in. So overall, big perspective is let the separation occur. It doesn't mean you can't be friends with them, but just maybe not as heavy or just put your really thick boundaries. Like I said, when people try to tell me all their bad stuff and I sort of cut it off, tell them to get a therapist, you know, like that's a boundary. Doesn't mean I'm not their friend. I'm still their friend. They just know they're not going to dump all that energy on me that they're not healing. They need to dump it on someone else, preferably someone they pay to do it. And it's just a big lesson. So to all of you out there who are making these decisions, and I've been seeing posts online of people saying, I had to cut mom off, I had to cut my sister off. They were toxic. They were toxic. And I want to say, like, it's okay to do that. And when you're in a better place, you can always seek to heal it again and bring them in if you see that they're working on themselves. And if they're not working on themselves, you have some big choices. Because I'm going to tell you something, you can get pulled down. That's how energy works. You will get pulled down. So, where do you want to be hanging out? Right. So, I hope this was really helpful and perspective on the spiritual aspect, and that it's not just going to be Shaquella. We're going to see more and more. And then you're going to see more and more people like me and other thought leaders saying you have to use discernment. Not everyone deserves to be in your circle, right? And that's where we are right now spiritually in this age of Aquarius and the ascension process, which apparently, from my guides, we're actually coming upon pretty closely to the time where um the real big separation is going to occur because they're always like, I always ask them to do something. They're like, for how long? I was like, forever. They're like, you're not gonna need it forever. We're getting close. And I think it's just really obvious now, everything that we've been talking about. So if this is you, I am telling you it's okay to be alone and just to allow people in small doses until you see through their actions that they're worthy and have the capacity to have larger doses of your time and attention. And in the meantime, if you're focusing on things you love and want to do, you just become more valuable as a person because you're happier, more whole. And when people do spend that time with you, you're just a better energy to be around. So I hope this was helpful. I'm part. So if anyone has any questions before I jump off on anything or anything you want to share, you can post them before I end. Yeah, she's gonna get justice. Hello, Kitty. Don't worry. I think you guys can all tell, right? Like this is gonna, we're gonna get to the bottom of this. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. All right, love you guys. Take care and bye.